Welcome to Shaq's house. Shaq's house. That's our Shaq. You're now in Shaq's house. That's our Shaq. Welcome to Shaq's house. That's our Shaq.
What's up, Shaq Housers? How y'all doing? It's your boy Shaq House here. Love this Blade Runner shirt I got right here. Yeah, more human than human, just like our topic of discussion for the day. Mutants. That's right. But what kind of mutants are we talking about? We're going to be talking about phasing mutants. That's right. The mutants who got intangibility and intangibility related abilities. That's right. I bet you can guess who is number one in that equation. But keep on watching, you'll find out. We're going to talk about all the different phases, the different teenage phases, the phases that girls go through during college. Anywho, I kid. Check it out.
He phased, sir.
Phasing.
I think she's finally growing out of her teen asshole phase.
The 3 phases of the moon, the 3 phases of a witch's life.
Distinguish phase 1 from phase 3 to phase...
I can phase through solid objects.
Loa. Loa has the mutant power to disrupt the molecular structure of objects that pass through her body, causing them to disintegrate. While some superhumans with similar powers operate by having their molecules slide effortlessly over and around those of other objects while phased, Loa's power signature would be more akin to shoving through an object instead of sliding through it. Loa experiences resistance moving through physical objects, and so while she walks through objects as if they were air, Loa must swim through them, physically propelling herself along inside the mass she's passing through with kicks or strokes. Upon exiting the object, the distortion of her molecules on the object's structure causes it to lose integrity and break down, crumbling to pieces within moments after she passes. If she walks through a wall, a hole is left in it after she exits. Projectiles and other attacks are disintegrated after passing through her, and punching her directly is harmful. She wears an Atlantean pendant, which has conditioned her to breathe underwater and survive the pressure at ocean depths. Some fun facts. Alani Ryan was born in Hawaii, and she's an avid surfer and fluent in the Hawaiian language and customs. Kind of like Bryan Adams, the WWF wrestler, was when he went solo and became Crush and started emphasizing his Hawaiian background. Loa's grandmother was a close acquaintance to Namor, the Submariner, and during Namor's time with the X-Men, he became close with Loa. Her codename, Loa, is a nod to her Hawaiian upbringing, a direct reference to the volcano, Mauna Loa. She was a part of the group who entered Xavier's school in the mid-2000s, later becoming an X-Man. She was actually killed during the X-Men Disassembled storyline, but later resurrected on Krakoa. Next, the Neophyte. The Neophyte possesses a phase-morphing mutant ability that enables him to travel distances through mass by breaking down his physical molecular structure and entering a solid object. When in contact with matter, the Neophyte relaxes the molecular bonding forces in his body so that his molecules merge with the object he's touching in a non-substantial state. He can then cause the mass of his body to reform itself at a different angle or position to emerge from the object. When he was living with the Acolytes in their French castle around Uncanny X-Men number 300, he could merge his mass with one stone wall of the castle and reform himself a moment later out of any of the connecting stone surfaces. Later, on the rocky hillsides of Wundagore, the Neophyte could almost instantly relocate himself across the landscape by merging with the uniform earth and rock of the area. He could also separate his mass into multiple smaller masses, such as when he jumped off of a balcony and disappeared into a rainstorm by dividing his mass up into the rain, only to reform later as the rain hit the ground below. He can also extend his power to anything or anyone he touches, and both absorb and expel projectiles to simulate intangibility. Fun facts. He's either German or Swiss and was one of the youngest members of the Acolytes, recruited by them when they were looking around in Switzerland for a young mutant like him. But he instantly became disillusioned with them after learning of leader Fabian Cortez's lies and the hypocritical bloodlust of some of his teammates. He was later put on a trial by the Acolytes, and Exodus sentenced him to banishment. When Magneto took over the group once more, the Neophyte rejoined and was last seen in X-Men's Second Coming storyline. Since the X-Men's base at the time was an island, and they, along with most of the mutant population, now live on an island, it stands to reason that the Neophyte might be on Krakoa too. On a side note, his code name makes very little sense. Simon Hall is his real name, and a Neophyte is a newcomer, someone who's just joined an organization. Even after the Acolytes added a half a dozen other recruits after him, he was still stuck with that non-descriptive moniker, and he never shook it off. Next, Shinobi Shaw. Shinobi Shaw's mutant power is to manipulate and control his own molecular density. He is able to make his body become intangible or diamond hard at will. This effect seems to be energy-based, as he tends to produce a signature glow whenever a portion of his body contacts something while in his phase state. If so, his high-density form is probably reinforced not with additional mass, but with solid energy, similar to the constructs made by Quasar or others. Shinobi is able to move through walls and avoid injury while intangible, and he can also interrupt the internal structure of living beings by passing his hands into their bodies, disrupting their molecules to cause intense sensations of pain. He claims to be capable of interphasing, reaching into someone's body and pulling their heart intangibly through their chest. Fun facts. He's the illegitimate mutant son of Sebastian Shaw and a Japanese woman. He grew up resenting his father for his abusive treatment, so he made his own company as he got older, bought out his dad's holdings right from under his nose, and then killed him, or so he thought. A member of the Upstarts, he was also a childhood acquaintance of Archangel from the X-Men. He's a rich and spoiled mutant with the immature emotions of a child. He's currently on Krakoa, where Sebastian revealed that Harry Leland, the Black Bishop from the Hellfire Club, is Shinobi's real father, which Shinobi himself commented on in his first appearance, given their power similarities and a way to taunt Sebastian. Although personally, I think Sebastian just told him this so that they wouldn't have to deal with each other anymore. I believe Shinobi is really still his son, but he's like, I can't deal with this, so I'm gonna just give him to Harry Leland. Next, Shadowcat. Shadowcat's mutant ability is to become intangible at will, but not through altering the amount of mass in her body like the Vision and other density shifters do. Instead, her mutant power operates by producing a form of magnetic repulsion from within her body that causes her molecules to move away from and around other molecules, avoiding actual physical contact with other forms of matter. This allows her to move through solid objects and become untouchable for any kind of physical attack. Shadowcat is still capable of breathing normally in her phase state, but has to hold her breath when moving through a solid mass. She doesn't simply fall through the ground beneath her feet, because she's actually supporting herself on the air molecules underneath her feet. By making use of this fact, Shadowcat can walk on air, running across open space or ascending into the sky as if she were climbing a staircase. Her phasing power can be conducted through anything she touches, allowing her to perform simple tasks like carry a bag or weapon while intangible, or phase an entire group of people as a human chain holding hands. And finally, Shadowcat's mutant power has a disruptive effect on the operation of electronic devices, interrupting the proper flow of energy. This causes her to scramble anything of an electronic nature, including computers, by phasing through them. Some fun facts. Catherine Kitty Pryde is a genius-level intellect, highly talented in computer science and the design and use of computer hardware. She's also a skilled pilot of various aircraft and certain advanced interstellar vehicles. She has training in ballet and modern dance, speaks fluent Russian, Japanese, English, as well as the royal and standard languages of the alien Shi'ar. She has moderate expertise in Hebrew, Gaelic, and German. Lastly, she possesses proficiency in the martial arts of Japanese ninja and samurai, and is advanced with edged weapons and nunchucks. Kitty Pryde's a nice Jewish girl raised in a suburb outside of Chicago. She was actually the youngest X-Man ever brought onto the team at the age of 13. She's been with the X-Men, the Guardians of the Galaxy, and a founding member of Excalibur. She's also had plenty of relationships, Colossus for the longest time, and she finally consummated her relationship with Colossus during Joss Whedon's run on Astonishing X-Men. Peter Quill, yes, the legendary Star-Lord, the leader of the Guardians of the Galaxy, they were actually engaged. And even Iceman. For her code names, she initially went by Sprite in Uncanny X-Men number 139, then Ariel in Marvel Graphic Novel number 5, that is, and then finally Shadowcat in Kitty Pryde and Wolverine number 5. The Red Queen title that she currently holds as part of the Quiet Council of Krakoa is exactly that, a title, which no one ever calls her, much like her code names. Not even us comic readers refer to her by any of her code names. To us, she's just Kitty Pryde. Of course, she's tried to be more grown up now and dropped her nickname of Kitty and try Kate, but that's not gonna last either. Now, compare and contrast. Phasing powers can come about in various ways. Take Shinobi Shaw, for example. He uses bioenergy fields to influence his density, while somebody similar, like the Vision, will extra-dimensionally summon or displace his mass per volume. Now Shinobi, he can both increase or decrease his density, although he very rarely only displayed the former ability. For increased density, he would use energy fields to artificially bolster and reinforce his molecular structure. Someone like Quasar, for example, creates solid energy constructs by scooping up stray molecules in the environment and binding his quantum energy to them to forge artificial molecular binding forces, simulating the effect of a solid structure. Magneto does something similar with his personal bodysuits. Composed of metal fibers, he creates strong magnetic fields to reinforce the structural integrity of his costume, giving it the durability of something, say, like adamantium. Shinobi uses his biofields to reinforce his own molecular structure, preventing his molecules from yielding to outside forms of pressure and thus simulating increased durability and density. The phasing aspect of his power is very similar to Kitty Pryde's, but only accomplished through an energy field instead of the magnetic repulsion effect that Kitty uses. The only practical difference is the visible energy discharge that occasionally accompanies Shinobi's phasing. This energy field causes his molecules to avoid and move around other molecules, allowing him to pass harmlessly through other forms of matter. Now, some of you might be thinking that the Neophyte is a Kitty Pryde ripoff, but not so. Here's the differences in their powers. The Neophyte's power, as stated earlier, is to travel distances through mass, an ability that you could call phase morphing instead of Shadowcat's typical phasing ability. And when Kitty phases through walls, her body retains its normal shape and construction. All she's doing is merely causing her molecules to sidestep those of the wall, passing through the gaps found in even solid molecular structures. Now the Neophyte, however, he abandons molecular cohesion whenever he enters a solid object, becoming loose and excess mass inside the object's structure. His body reforms itself as he exits the object. The mass-traveling aspect of his ability works like those kids' Play-Doh machines from back in the day. They still make them now, but for some of you who don't recall, these simple machines were where you push Play-Doh, like modeling clay or putty, in from the top of a press, and it compresses the Play-Doh out from the bottom in the shape of a tube, a star, or whatever. The Neophyte's power works in the same principle. He can enter a block of stone from one side, pushing mass from the block out from another side. The block retains the same mass overall, more or less, but the original mass of Neophyte's body assumed the properties of the block and stayed behind, while a new body was created for him out of the mass of the block closest to where he exited from. The other practical difference between the Neophyte and Shadowcat is, if Kitty wants to phase to a 50 by 50 by 50 foot stone block, she still has to walk 50 feet while phased to get from one side to another. The Neophyte, on the other hand, can move from one side of the block to almost another instantaneously, as his body enters on one side and almost immediately reforms on the other. This is why his power was so effective when the Acolytes were living in that ancient French castle in X-Men number 300. He could leap into any wall, and because the architecture was all interconnected, he could instantly emerge through any other wall in the whole castle. Now in Fabian Cortez, he used his power to expedite the Neophyte's travel through the walls. That's what turned the Neophyte into a human missile, as you can see right here. Long story short, for comparison of all four of these characters, Shadowcat, she causes her molecules to reflexively dodge other molecules, moving around and between the molecular bonds of other objects. Loa's power is similar, but it puts a much greater molecular strain on the structures of the object that she's passing through, causing them to disintegrate as she passes. Shinobi creates an energy field within his molecules that prevents attackers from making direct contact with him. While the Neophyte, he actually merges his molecules with other objects on contact, becoming one with their molecular structures before later separating himself. Now, those capable of forms of floating or levitation, like Shadowcat, have powers that primarily work on themselves. Shinobi and Loa, they cannot float because their powers essentially cause other objects not to touch them, instead of making them personally untouchable. Now, people whose phasing powers have bio or techno-disruption aspects work based on substantial or partially substantially matter interfering with the natural flow of electrical current in machines or biological fluids in the body. The particular bioenergy flux created by the super being can also independently disrupt certain systems, so really it's all down to the individual character. Some of them move harmlessly through everything, some are completely disruptive, some can have varying levels of phase to affect or not affect outside people and objects at their choosing. Overall though, Kitty Pryde is the OG when it comes to phasing ability. Anytime I see somebody who can pass through solid matter, like D.L. Hawkins on Heroes, I'm thinking, Kitty Pryde! Kitty Pryde! Give her swag back, dude. I kid. Alright, Shackhousers, that's what I got for you this week. Tune in next week. I'm still trying to decide between the different kind of telepaths or mutants that have superhuman intelligence. You'll see which one is next. But until then, have a good week. Bye-bye. Later.
Mansion, apartment.
Shack house. Yes!
Yeah.